From the heart of the Space City to the heart of Gen Z, welcome to Next Gen Conversation. Not Dad's Talk Radio. Ethan talks to you about the issues and events that matter to our generation. This is the Next Gen Report with Ethan Buchanan.
That song gets really catchy. I have to listen to it a lot, and it's in my head 95% of the time. I don't even remember where I found it, but it lives in my brain now. Hey, everybody, welcome to the Next Gen Report. I am Ethan Buchanan. If you just happen to be tuning in wherever you are, I want to ask you real quickly, go follow me on X @ Ethan Buchanan, Buchanan. We're doing a lot of fun things on X recently. I've gotten into live streaming there. I'm live streaming this right now there. It's a great time. I think that is probably the best place to get information in, I guess, the modern era. It is the best news aggregator, and I don't think it's particularly close. So check out me on X @ Ethan Buchanan. Also, while you're at it, check out my sponsor, DeusVoltLapelPins.com. I'm actually wearing one of my new ones today. I got a package in this week. I finally got my hands on the 1824 Alamo flag pin. I've been trying to get that one forever. Every time it comes into stock, it sells out before I get a chance to order it. I finally got one. I got a handful of others. The new Celtic Cross Trinity knot is in. I got that one. It looks so good. The pictures don't do it justice online. Check out DeusVoltLapelPins.com. Just see if there's any stickers, any pins that just pique your interest. Just check it out. That's all I ask. And then if you do find a handful that you like and want to purchase, use my promo code NEXTPIN2026. You will get 10% off your order. It's a great way to get some fantastic products for not exceedingly expensive. All right. Now, moving on, let's talk a little bit about Supergirl. I was not super excited about this movie. Just doesn't really interest me. I've kind of fallen out of comic book movies ever since the MCU effectively ended. It hasn't ended on paper, but the movies have stopped being good, except for every now and again they'll release a good Spider-Man movie. But, you know, I really only watch superhero movies for Marvel superheroes, and the Marvel superhero movies just aren't that good anymore most of the time. So I was actually pleasantly surprised at how decent the Supergirl movie was. I went into it with very low expectations. I didn't expect it to be very good, but I thought it was pretty good. It kind of felt like a Guardians of the Galaxy movie to me. So maybe that's one of the reasons I liked it so much, because I really enjoy the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. But this movie felt just okay. It was just a fun, pleasant time. Would I go see it again? Probably not. Would I pay any money to see it again? No. If it pops up streaming somewhere, maybe I'll watch it if I'm just bored and have nothing else to do. But as a one-time experience, it was pretty much okay. I think a lot of other people expected this movie to be just super terrible because of how much woke messaging the star of the movie, Millie Alcock, was putting out. Here's the article from Variety. Millie Alcock embraces queer readings of Supergirl and loves how the movie ditches a romance storyline, a great representation of a modern woman. Now, without getting into any spoilers, there isn't really a love storyline. The whole plot of the movie is basically her dealing with the grief of the fact that her home planet Krypton and everyone she knows and loves has been destroyed. That's a fine plot for a movie, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed just kind of watching that side of the character that we don't really get to see with Superman at all explored. That was fun. That was fun. There was not any queer messaging in the movie, and I was expecting it because of articles and statement like this. Let me actually show you the statement she actually said, because I saw this clip and I thought, oh brother, this movie is going to be terrible. It's just going to be constant woke nonsense. Take a listen.
You heard from the fans, specifically from the LGBT community, about how they've been able to relate to your character.
I've just had a few people ask me about her and about her because it's Pride Month and all that, and I think that she's a really great representation of what a modern woman can be. She can be strong, she can be tough, she can be messy, and I love how this film doesn't center around any sort of love, you know? It doesn't center around romance or anything like that at all, and she has such resilience that I think that community is a community that is so resilient, and they can really relate to that in that. And I'm really honored that they can connect with that.
So none of that had anything to do with Pride Month, but she brought it up anyway. What do you think about this character? Well, it is Pride Month, and she's super resilient, and that's kind of gay. Okay, Millie, whatever. So I expected this movie to be chocked full of woke garbage, and it wasn't. But I think this kind of gets to something that I've talked about a handful of times before on this show, and that is the left, the woke left foot soldiers, whatever you want to call it. These people can't move past their politics. Everything has to be politicized, even if it's a fairly apolitical movie. I mean, I was looking for the political messaging in this film, and I really didn't see it. I think the closest thing to woke that we got is, oh, you shouldn't kill this guy that's killing all these innocent people because then you'll be no better than they are. I think that line that we hear in super movies all the time is just so stupid. Kill the bad guys. It's not that complicated. But that was the closest that I saw that got to woke. And other than that, the movie was pretty good, pretty entertaining. So here is my question to you, the listener, the viewer. Does a star of a movie saying something super woke, trying to insert wokeness that is or is not in the movie into the movie via press conferences or whatever, does that ruin the movie for you? Because for me, not really. I can kind of say, okay, you're woke, you're in Hollywood, that's what I expect from you. Now, did you actually do a good job in this movie? But I know a lot of people will hear statements like that from the star of a movie and think, oh, I don't want this movie to make any money. I think you deserve to fail because of these ridiculous comments. And that is completely valid and legitimate. I think that's completely okay. So let me know what you think. If you're listening on the iHeartRadio app, use the TalkBack mic. If you're watching the X live stream, type it in the chat. I've got it up right now. I'm reading it. I'm watching it. Let me know what you think. Is a comment like that from the woke star of a movie enough to ruin the movie for you entirely? And I think my position on this is no. I think we need to a certain extent, and this isn't a hard and fast rule, but I think it's better for us, at least for our daily lives, we'll be able to enjoy more entertainment if we just say, okay, I can go watch a movie that has woke stars as long as you're not ramming down political messaging down my throat. And Supergirl didn't do that. All right, I'm going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, once again, welcome back. Again, real quick, take a few moments. Let me know if the star of a movie goes out on the press tour, starts saying a bunch of woke things, and those woke things aren't necessarily actually in the movie, will that ruin the movie for you? And again, there's no wrong answer here. I just want to make that clear. I'm not going to judge you based on whether or not you answer yes or no. Frankly, I don't care. I'm just kind of interested. I want to know what the kind of general consensus is. There is no wrong answer. You're allowed to enjoy things, even if the things you're enjoying are made by people who hate you. And I'm saying this as someone who enjoys a lot of things made by people who hate me. I am under no, I guess, I'm not confused at all, I should say, about who Hollywood is and the type of content they make and the things they believe. But I also am a person who likes to be entertained. So if there's a good product out there, I'm willing to move past that. If you're not, that's fine. That is fine. I'm curious. Curious to know what the general consensus is. So use the TalkBack mic on the free iHeartRadio app. Or if you follow me on X at _Ethan Buchanan, Buchanan. Check me out there. Shoot me a DM. Shoot me a comment. Just let me know. I'm just curious. All right, so I want to talk about the SAVE Act and the other bill that's kind of gotten caught in the crossfire here. So if you're unfamiliar, the SAVE Act still has not been passed. That's the bill that the two big things it would do is require for national elections voter ID. And then on top of that, it would be like a nationwide ban of men and women's sports via the transgender excuse. So you can't just say, oh, I'm a woman, and then go compete against women if you're Leah Thomas or whatever. So that's the two big things the SAVE Act does. The thing that has gotten the most attention is the fact that it would require voter ID. And I think just that in and of itself is a cultural victory for conservatives. The fact that Democrats and the woke left are attacking the SAVE Act, not because it would ban men from women's sports, but because it would require voter ID, that tells me the woke left understands that the whole transgender thing isn't popular anymore. That is a cultural battle that the left has lost. That's a good thing. I know we all love to kind of poo-poo the culture wars these days, but the culture wars are important. There are children that are not going to be medically mutilated now that would have been if we hadn't won this culture war. There are women and girls that aren't going to be assaulted in private spaces by transgenders that would have been if we hadn't won this culture war issue. Now, there's still work to do. That fight isn't over, but it's in its end stages. The left has clearly lost, and they're not even trying super hard to fight back anymore. That is good. Now, specifically in regards to the SAVE Act, I think what the Senate Republicans wanted was to just say, oh, we tried our best, we debated it, but gosh, we just don't have those filibuster-proof majorities that we need, so I guess we're just going to let it go. Sorry, guys. And then just hope you'd forget about it and go home, and no one would ever be concerned about it again. Thankfully, Donald Trump and some members of the House GOP are not allowing that to happen. Keep talking about the SAVE Act constantly. No matter how many excuses they throw, keep talking about it. Because eventually they're going to have to come up with a solution if they realize the problem isn't going away. And that's what Donald Trump really did over the last week, was he reminded them that this is not going to go away. We want this. We're not going to stop wanting it. So you're going to have to do something eventually. Here's how he did that. There is a fairly bipartisan, it's my understanding. It was put forward by the Republicans, but I think the Democrats had enough common sense to get behind it. A bill that would basically do a couple of big things to make housing more affordable. And Trump basically came out and said, I'm not going to sign this because I don't have the SAVE Act. A lot of people were upset about that. A lot of conservatives were mad about it. This is a smart move, and I'll explain it to you. So here's his Truth Social that he put out on the 24th. Today's housing news conference and signing is hereby canceled until such time as we pass the desperately needed Save America Act, which I consider to be a national emergency. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Now, take careful note of what he said. He's not going to veto the bill. He's not going to kill it. And even if he did veto it, I'm fairly confident that they could just pass it anyway. A lot of people don't know this. The president can veto a bill, and then Congress can just get together and override the veto. So, it's not like this bill isn't going to happen. It will happen eventually. This housing bill will happen. And I do think it's good. Here's why. Here's what's in the bill. The measure is the culmination of months of negotiations by lawmakers who combine dozens of bills meant to address how housing affordability for both renters and aspiring homeowners in the U.S. has grown increasingly out of reach for many Americans. This is according to the Associated Press. The bill would reduce federal regulations. That's good. Less regulations is always great. Streamline environmental reviews. Fantastic. Don't let the greenie weenies stop us from building housing. Speed up the construction process, and curb the influence of corporate landlords by limiting their ability to purchase single-family homes. All of this stuff is great. All of this stuff is fantastic. I think it's a fairly good bill. I'm sure there's stuff in it that I don't like or wouldn't like or what have you, but it's a good bill, and it should become law eventually, and it will. This bill, Trump actually doesn't have to sign. I don't think. Almost every single bill says this bill will become law after the president signs it, or after like 30 days or 60 days. So it can just sit on his desk and become law. He doesn't have to sign it. So what Trump actually did here by not signing this bill is nothing, other than saying, hey, Senate GOP, I'm still watching you. I still want the SAVE Act. You haven't gotten away with not passing it. It's a good move. It's fairly low risk political leverage. I have no problem with that whatsoever. The View does have a problem with it. The ladies of The View are super upset that President Trump didn't have this signing conference. Here is Whoopi Goldberg and crew complaining about it. Take a listen.
He torpedoed the bill because he wants another bill signed.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, as I just explained, that's fundamentally false. He didn't torpedo the bill. Just means the bill is going to have to sit and be patient for a minute. That's not going to hurt anybody. Again, the bill will still become law.
Right. And it seems to me no one wants to sign this bill.
Doesn't have the votes.
It doesn't have the votes. And so he's trying to push it and do all kinds of it's ridiculous. It's the bill that would force people to have ID when they come to vote. And nobody wants it.
It's citizenship.
All right, take note of what Whoopi Goldberg just said there. He's trying to force this and push this voter ID bill that nobody wants. Nobody wants the voter ID bill, and he's just pushing it. It doesn't have the votes. Okay, Whoopi, I don't know if you know this about politics, but if something that you really want doesn't have the votes, continuing to try to push it and use leverage to get the votes is actually how politics works. That's kind of the whole thing. But the second thing that she said there, I think is much more important. She made the claim that nobody wants this bill. She said that. You heard her say it. It's actually not true. According to WisconsinWatch.org, polls show roughly 80% of Americans support requiring photo identification to vote. Pew Research Center, 83% of U.S. adults strongly favored requiring all voters to show government-issue photo identification to vote. Now, again, that's all voters. That's not Republicans. That's not just something the GOP wants. That's 80% of all voters nationwide, and that's just one poll. There are dozens of polls out there that you can go find, that you can go watch, look at, that all say essentially the exact same thing. About 80%, oftentimes north of 80% of voters across the United States want photo ID to vote because it is common sense. It is. You need a photo identification for everything. In many states, you have to have a photo ID to carry a gun. You have to have a photo ID to get a library card. I just did it. So the idea that we wouldn't require that for voting is ridiculous. We got a little bit more on this. We'll be right back. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. So we're talking about the SAVE Act, which still hasn't been passed. Trump is now using basically whatever leverage he can possibly get his hands on to try to get it passed, including holding up bills that I know a lot of people want. I want it too. I want this housing bill to be passed as well. I think it's great. I think we have a housing affordability problem. Now, I think you could solve that problem without this bill. I think this bill is one of many ways to solve the housing affordability issue. And listen, we all know there's a housing affordability issue. That's not partisan. That's not something that is disagreed on across party lines. I think if you really wanted to quickly and easily solve the housing affordability issue, you could just deport a whole bunch of people. A whole bunch of people. I've talked about in the show how the housing deficit, at least about a year ago, was somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 to 6 million units of housing. And we had somewhere in the neighborhood, at least a year ago, of 10 to 30 million illegal aliens in the country. You could just deport all of those people and all of a sudden the housing deficit disappears. We'd actually have a housing surplus, depending on what estimates you trust for how many illegal aliens are in the country. And again, it's very hard to know that number for sure, because by nature of being illegal aliens, we don't have documents on them. So we don't know how many there are. So this bill is one of several ways that you can reduce the cost of housing. And I think that's completely fine. And now Trump is using it as leverage because he needs to. The fact that the SAVE Act hasn't been passed is frankly ridiculous. If for no other reason, forget the fact that it's common sense, because for whatever reason, the Democrats love to pretend that voter ID is a partisan issue. It's not, but they like to say it is. So leaving that aside, it is just common sense. You do need an ID for literally everything you do in this country. Literally every single thing. Go buy a beer right now. They will card you. Or at least they should. They're supposed to. I'll be honest, I haven't been carded in a while. I think it's because of the beard. But if I shave the beard, I will get carded. I'm 23 years old and I'm still getting carded. It's fine. It's whatever. I'll just keep the beard. But if you go to Kroger and try to self-check out a beer, you will get carded. The machine will card you. If you go to a liquor store, you're probably going to get carded. If you go to the library right now and say, hey, I want a library card, they will card you. Every single time. They'll say, let me see your ID. I need to make sure you're a resident of this area. So how are we pretending still that this is super controversial? They love to throw out, oh, what about privacy or whatever? Okay, but you don't complain when you're asked to show an ID at the library or at Kroger. You trust Kroger and the local library with your whatever identifying information might be on the photo ID, but not the government that has it all anyway? I mean, there's nothing the government's going to find out from you by you showing your photo ID to an election worker that they don't know already. They know where you live. They know what you do online already. What privacy do you think you have that having to show a photo ID is going to ruin? It's ridiculous. And beyond all of that, it is immensely popular across property lines or party lines. Pew Research, August 2025, 83% of U.S. adults strongly favored or favored requiring all voters. Rasmussen reports, January 2025, 77% of likely voters say requiring a photo ID is reasonable. That's like the lowest number is 77%. That's still a huge, ridiculously large majority. Gallup in October of 2024, this is a little older, 84%. Also, 83% favored requiring people who are registered to vote for the first time to provide proof of citizenship. That's reasonable too. And yet still the Democrats pretend that this is super controversial and unpopular. And listen, I don't know why the Senate Republicans won't pass it. I think maybe it's because they've been, I guess, scared by the Democrats. Maybe they believe the Democrat line that this is super unpopular, which that should disqualify you from public office. If you don't have the common sense to actually look at what the actual polling is saying rather than just listening to the Democrat talking heads that keep saying this is super radical, you should not be in office. You're just an idiot. So that's a good kind of, hey, you the voters, take note and vote accordingly next time these various senators are up for re-election. Byron Donalds, he's a representative from Florida. He's one of the main backers of this in the House, along with Chip Roy out of Texas. He's actually calling out the Senate Republicans, which is fantastic. And he thinks all of this is just because of laziness. And I'm sure that's definitely part of it. Take a listen to what he had to say. I think it's frankly fantastic.
The Senate sucks. I'm just going to come out and say it. They suck. This is not hard. 80% of the American people want the Save America Act to pass. Not 80% of Republicans, 80% of the American people. And the only organization that refused to act is the United States Senate. Everybody else is saying, this is common sense. We should do common sense things. Let's make sure only Americans are voting in our elections. Makes sense, right? Let's protect the franchise of the American people. Let's make sure that people who are sent to Washington are being voted on by Americans. Who the American people choose is up to them, but we have a responsibility to secure that franchise and to secure that process for the American people. And what is happening in the U.S. Senate is laziness, and quite frankly, it's disgusting. What? The Senate Democrats don't want to have voter ID in America. Why? Because they want to maintain their power. Senate Republicans don't want to do the right thing and actually have a true filibuster on the floor and debate the matter on the floor, because it would take them away from their precious meetings that they have to conduct. I'm sorry. They have a responsibility to open up the Senate floor and debate this issue in front of the American people. I agree with Chairman Harris 1,000%. I want to hear what Chuck Schumer has to say on the floor in full debate about why he opposes this measure. I want to hear what Elizabeth Warren has to say about why she would oppose this measure. I want her to tell the people of Massachusetts why she believes that the people of Massachusetts should not have to show a photo ID in order to vote in a federal election in the United States of America. Just the other day, President Obama opened up his...
And then he goes in to talk about there how you have to have a photo ID to get into the Obama Presidential Center, which is objectively hilarious. Now, I want to call out specifically the excuse that the GOP, the Senate GOP, keeps using as to why they can't get this passed. They keep saying time and time again, we don't have the votes, we don't have the votes, we don't have the votes. It's bullcrap. You do have the votes. You just have to work a little harder. That's it. The Senate Republicans do have, I think, like a 53, 54, somewhere in there, seat majority. And then worst comes to worst, they've got J.D. Vance, who can break that tie. And that's really all you need, 51%. You can pass the SAVE Act. Now, what does that require? It does require moving the filibuster from, hey, you need 60 votes to pass a bill, to you actually have to filibuster. A lot of people don't know this, but the filibuster used to mean you actually have to filibuster. You actually had to hold the floor and just keep speaking and speaking and speaking and speaking and speaking and speaking and speaking in order to block the vote. And people would set records doing that. Now it's just, oh, you have to have 60 votes. And that way we don't have to all sit there and listen to somebody talk for 17, 18, 24 hours or however long it is. Now, a lot of Republicans are hesitant to change that filibuster at all because that has protected us in the past from Democrats doing some radical things. Here's what you need to understand. Those days are over. The days of both the Democrats and the Republicans agreeing together not to rock the boat and do anything super duper radical are over. The absolute moment the Democrats have a majority in the Senate, and one of these days it will happen, they will destroy the filibuster. They're not nominating Democrats in their primaries that will preserve the filibuster. They're not doing it. The ones that stopped it last time when they had control of the Senate and Joe Biden was president have both been kicked out of office. It was Joe Manchin in West Virginia and then somebody out of Arizona, I think, were the two moderate Democrats that said, no, we're not going to vote to destroy the filibuster. Both of them got quickly kicked out of office. One was primaried, one was essentially forced to retire. So the next time the Democrats are in power, they will destroy the filibuster and they will use that power to do insanely radical things. This isn't even like a conspiracy theory. This isn't just me assuming that. This isn't me guessing. They're openly saying it. I'm going to play you in the next segment because I don't have time for it now. This video of Gavin Newsom, who, make no mistake, very much desperately wants to be the president of the United States. Openly saying, yeah, when we get into power, we're going to do some radical stuff. We'll be right back. Alrighty. This is going to be controversial because what I'm advocating for essentially is the iron is hot. The GOP needs to strike before the Democrats do. And make no mistake, the Democrats will. I know there's a lot of people out there in the world that still would like to believe that, oh, the Democrats and the Republicans still, at the end of the day, They both just really want what's best for America. We just kind of disagree on how to get there. Right? That used to be the old line. And I definitely think that was true back in the day. I definitely think there was a period in American history where both the Republicans and the Democrats, on average, would say, hey, we want what's best for the United States. We believe that the United States is this particular value set and this particular people, and these are the things that we want to see in the future, but we have diverging paths in order to get to a shared point B from a shared point A. That is no longer the case. And I think it probably hasn't really been for a while. And the Republicans need to recognize this. The average rank and file kind of casual voter Republican needs to wake up to the fact that the Democrats don't like you. The Democrats don't share your values. Most of the time, they don't have that same shared history of, hey, we've been progressively building up the United States for 250 years, and we want to keep going and keep improving. Most of them just got here a generation ago, maybe 2 generations ago. They would rather be, or at least they say they would rather be, in whatever sandbox country they came from. And they're here for the sole purpose of destroying the United States. And they are going to act with that set of interests in mind. So Republicans need to act first. We do. We have power right now. We need to do something right now to stop this. The SAVE Act would be a great first step. Make sure at the very least they can't just import voters and then have them go vote in huge numbers of radical Democrat candidates in places like California or New York, where they don't require photo ID. And at least in California, it's actually, you're not allowed to even show your ID. You're not allowed to say, here's my ID, this is who I am, I'd like to vote. You're supposed to just go in and vote. That's ridiculous. If doing that requires abolishing the filibuster, that's a level of risk we have to assume. Because again, even if we don't, within 4 years, if the Democrats take power, the filibuster will be abolished. And then they will use that new power to do things like hack the Supreme Court. Gavin Newsom is openly saying this. This isn't just me being a conspiracy theorist or being a radical or being an accelerationist trying to make you panic. He went on his own podcast and openly said this. Take a listen.
So you're talking about expanding to 13, and it's interesting. I mean, it is a great historical, and people forget it. The last time it was done again was under Lincoln. There's no constitutional constraints on.
The first thing that needs to happen is court reform and court expansion.
Yeah, look, you're getting me closer to your point of view, and you challenged me. I know we were talking. I was on your pod down in LA a few months ago, and this notion of 13, and then just looking at the district courts as that framework, sort of anchor. The old school, the ember of a traditional, I mean, look,
for a guy who recognized the urgency of the moment with Prop 50, and in fact, the only Democratic state to have successfully redrawn its maps ahead of 2026, that is what I think is the natural evolution.
God bless
for somebody
you.
like you.
I'm with you. I'm done winning arguments. We got to win.
Yeah.
And
I'm done winning arguments. We got to win. Listen, he kind of danced around it because, again, he does want to run for president, so he's trying not to seem too radical. But the only reason he didn't come out there and say, yes, expand the court to 13 Supreme Court justices, and then we can have a radical Democrat president appoint radical Democrats to the court, and they'll be approved by a radical Senate who can't filibuster the judges anymore, is because he does want to appear at least somewhat moderate for the 2028 election cycle, where he will run. I guarantee it. And again, even Gavin Newsom aside, because you could say, oh, he's just, from California. They're all woke over there. And at the end of the day, he's just going to be the governor, and he's probably not going to win the presidency. It doesn't really matter. Okay, fine. But there are levels of politics below that, and those do matter. And those are also being staffed with radical Democrats that are, again, openly saying they want to completely remake the United States of America. Not just they want to change it, they want to reform it, they want to tear it down beyond the foundations and completely rebuild it from scratch in a way that you will not recognize. This will be an Islamic caliphate if they get their way. I'll give you an example of this. New York 13 nominee Daraliza Avila Chevalier is the co-founder of CUAD. That's like Columbia University Apartheid Divestment or something. It's one of these anti-Israel groups. She is the founder of this organization. She is now probably going to be a congresswoman from New York following winning a primary with the endorsement of Zohran Mamdani. And here's how her organization describes itself very publicly. This is an Instagram screenshot. So it's not like they're hiding this. It's not buried on some corner of a website. It's right there on their Instagram. We are Westerners fighting for the total eradication of Western civilization. Their words, not mine. Not the reform of Western civilization, not equality in Western civilization or equity or whatever woke buzz term they want to use. They are fighting, and they admit it openly, for the eradication of Western society. That means the United States as you know it right now. And they're not just going to oopsie give up. They're going to get people like her into power in the House and in the Senate, and they're going to push for things like the abolition of the filibuster. And then they're going to use that power to, on a bare majority, with 51%, start cramming through things like a 13-judge U.S. Supreme Court that can then start working to heavily restrict the Second Amendment, or D.C. statehood, or Puerto Rican statehood, so that they can start getting stronger, even more filibuster-proof majorities. They will fundamentally destroy the United States of America. And they are not going to concern themselves with niceties like the filibuster on their way to do it. So while the GOP is sitting on their hands, too scared to trust or to touch the filibuster, to pass something as simple and as widely popular as the SAVE Act, the Democrats are making plans to literally destroy the United States of America. And I'm not just trying to scare you. I'm not trying to be, hyperbolic or ridiculous. This is just what they're saying. It's what they're doing. We've got to pay attention to this stuff. We've got to call this stuff out when we see it. Thankfully, at least the Trump administration's staffers are. Stephen Miller, who I love to the moon and back, actually called all of this out recently. Take a listen to this.
Look, we used to have a country, you could pick what time period, maybe say the 1980s with Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan. We used to have a country where you had a center-left Democrat Party, really a center, I would say a center to center-left with many members who were actually center-right. These were called Reagan Democrats or Blue Dog Democrats. So that was the spectrum the Democrat Party lived in, from center-left to center-right. Then you had a Republican Party, right, a conservative party. And over time, the Democrat Party has abandoned all of that, and they have instead adopted this radical, revolutionary, and in many cases violent ideology that wants to tear America down and destroy everything that we know and love from top to bottom, right?
That is the hard reality of the world we live in. The America you grew up in is only going to continue to exist if you get willing to make people uncomfortable in order to preserve it. Listen, this has been the Next Gen Report. I am Ethan Buchanan. Thank you very much for listening or watching. Follow me on X @_Ethan Buchanan, Buchanan. And hey, have a blessed one.